No, Ben, I'm not coming over later to build a snowman with you.
That's funny. That's funny.
How's it going there? Well, all right, what?
All right, here we go.
What are you doing?
There we go. God, here we go. Got him.
We are live. Why don't you share with everybody what we're doing there?
Well, I couldn't remember the names of all 7 Republican senators. There we go. Got it. Okay. All right. Just so people know how my brain works. Where is it? I forgot Bill Cassidy. I humbly apologize to Bill Cassidy, the Republican senator from Louisiana. Was one of the 7 who voted to convict Donald Trump. So
there you go, guys. Breaking the fourth wall there. A little pre-show prep live.
That's just for the live listeners, of course, because Dennis will edit that out for the podcast. So people in the podcast will think, "Oh my God, he's brilliant! He knows all 7 senators."
Yeah, we'll edit that out. How's it going, everybody? We are live. Yes, I am back from my ski trip. Yes, Jay Marie. I went skiing over the weekend. Everybody. Yeah, I had a ski-kend.
He's going deep sea diving next weekend, and after that, he's going to do a little mountain climbing.
More on that later. I imagine more on my ski-kend a little later. So we'll talk about that when it comes up.
And I think you're going on a golf outing.
Okay,
next weekend.
Not doing any of that. Holy crap, there's a lot of snow out there, everybody. Your Ben Joravsky Show for Tuesday, February 16th is just moments away. But before we do this, let's thank our sponsors. Sponsors like SEIU Healthcare, Illinois, Indiana. Yes, they are sponsors. The Chicago Federation of Labor are sponsors as well. And the Chicago Reader, chicagoreader.com. Subscribe to the Reader. Support the Reader. Let them know that you appreciate the Ben Joravsky Show. And speaking of a big way that you can do that, well, there's 2 options that you have here. One, Ben Joravsky has a book coming out. Ben, tell people about this book.
This book is my greatest hits. It's a collection of stories I've done down through the years. It's essentially, folks, I'm going to just be very honest. First of all, it's a great read. Let's get that off, if I must say so myself. But secondly, it's a way to raise money for this show. And so we have this whole thing we're coming up with. Dennis figured it out. I got to give Dennis credit. He came up. Am I allowed to let the cat out of the bag, D?
Let that out of the bag. Oh, I think that was 2 cats.
Get back in. Well, no, they're like running around my room. Wow, what a weird imagination. Like I made up the cat in the bag. Now I got the cat running around the room. Get in that bag.
But about that book.
Oh, about the book, yes. And so we have this whole promotional thing we're going to be doing. Buy the book, help support the show, and become a Ben head. It was Dennis's idea. He came up with that, and everybody was like, "Oh God, this guy is smart."
Yeah, we're coming up with like a way that you can help support our program by becoming a Ben head. Yes, that's true. All right, your monthly or yearly donation keeps Ben on the podcast and off the streets, according to this piece I'm reading here.
Be hanging out that alley at that porta potty, okay? But now I'm here doing something.
But by becoming a Ben head is what we're calling. Are you a Ben head listening right now? By becoming a Ben head, you will receive a weekly newsletter from Ben with exclusive behind-the-scenes revelations, roadmaps to all things Joravsky. Oh, Lord, who knows what that means? That can mean a lot of things. And curated links to the latest podcast episodes. Become a Ben head, and rumor has it you'll get a deal on this Ben Joravsky book that is set to come out. Learn more at chicagoreader.com/Joravsky. Well, here's a throwback. Ben, spell that last name for him, please.
Oh my God, we haven't done this since the old days. That's J-O-R-A. V as in victory, as my beloved Bulls did last night. S-K-Y. And they actually did win a game last night. They beat Indiana in overtime. How about that, D? Yes, please become a bedhead. Help us out. Help us fund the show, please.
Okay, we don't want to sound too desperate. Hey, it'd be cool. It'd be cool if you, helped us out. It'd be all right.
De-edit that out. I'll do it the way it was WBC. And if you subscribe now, you get the newsletter and a Ben head doll. So subscribe right now. Okay, how about that?
I don't think there's a Ben head doll.
We should bring Ken Davis. He invented Pledge Drive at BEZ. He's a little modest about that, but many years ago he kind of invented that. We should bring Ken Davis back just to help us sell the book, but it is a great book, if I must say so myself. A lot of, oh my goodness, go back to the Bill Ayers story I did in the early 90s about the weatherman, the radical group weatherman turned political insider in Chicago. I'm going down memory lane. Norm Van Leer's story, the great Norm Van Leer, basketball, there's some sports, there's politics. A story that mentioned Monroe's story, I teased him about it last week, going back to the 80s about Leonida McClain, the great Chicago Tribune columnist. I've been writing stories for the reader for a long, long time, D. So.
Yes, you have. And Dragon Slayer 19, he just answered your question right there. No, it's not like 300 pages on tips. There's more than tips, all right?
You know, Dragon Slayer, I got to confess, there's not a TIFF story in the book. And I was like, I want to show people I'm more than just a TIFF guy.
Whoa.
Okay. I'm like, I know that's what you know me as, the TIFF guy, that weird TIFF guy. And I'm okay. I'm good with it, D. I can live with it. That's my life. I understand it. But there's more to me, okay?
It's Ben Joravsky's greatest hits. It's a collection of profiles and features handpicked by the man himself from his 40 years of writing for the reader. Each article offers a distinctive portrait of an activist, politician, writer, or sports personality. Guys, go check it out. More information, chicagoreader.com/Joravsky, Joravy as in victory, SKY. Okay. Ben, you have a song of the day.
Okay.
Back to business here, all right? It does come from Frank, who will be appearing on the Ben Joravsky Show, all right, this week. Get ready. The song She's a Rainbow by the Rolling Stones.
Oh, my God, I like that song. She's a rainbow. She's got colors everywhere. Wow, 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 wow. She comes her hair. Wow, 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 wow. She comes in color. That's like that era that was like, it was era, like 6 months where the Stones were all psychedelic, man. Rainbow, wow, wow.
Well, it was a song of the day.
You ever notice how all the songs sort of end the same way? Yeah.
Just now catching on to that, huh?
Yeah, it takes me a while.
The Ben Joravsky Show starts now. It is Tuesday, February 16th, and snowed in my apartment in his attic. This is the Ben Joravsky Show. Today on the program, 35th Ward Alderman Carlos Ramirez-Rosa. And now your host, not an alderman, Chicago Raider columnist Ben Joravsky.
Hello, everybody. Ben Joravsky here. We're calling this Trump Walks Tuesday, and here's why. Good week. You have a good weekend, D? How'd that skiing go? Everybody wants to know how the skiing go, D, huh?
Everybody's dying to know how my ski trip went. And it was fun. What's the name of that fella you talk about? Jean-Claude what?
Jean-Claude Keely.
Yeah, I'm no Jean-Claude Keely. I learned that over the weekend. Holy crap. I fell like every single time I tried to go down a hill.
Did you make it off the bunny hill?
No, of course not.
Okay, right.
Hell no. I never, right. Yeah. A lot of cursing happened, and, it was fun. I can cross it off the list to say I've done it, but you can only. And the trainer guy. Oh, my God. I was ready to strangle the trainer guy.
I know. It's always so easy. Well,
yeah.
What you gotta do.
Now, listen, all it is, it's pizza, French fries. Pizza, French fries. Pizza's stopping because you make a pizza shape. I'm like going down the hill, about to fall down. Come on, pizza! Dennis, pizza! Like this bastard.
I don't remember that. Again, I went skiing once many, many years ago before Dennis was born. And I went down the bunny hill, fell, and said, that's it. Went into the lounge and hung out there for the rest of the day while my friends finished. Oh, God, it was so much fun, Ben. Not a skier. I don't come from a long line of skiers. Well, D, you look great. And Thanks. I know you're really into this stuff now. Next week, of course, will be golfing. After that, it'll be a little tennis.
Not true.
You're going to take a bridge. And pretty soon, you'll be scuba diving off the coast of Cuba. So
now, Dennis, I know you fell down here, but now you got to remember, French fries, pizza, French fries. Like, dude, okay, I get it. Yeah, pizza, French fries. I'm hungry now.
Like you're 8 years old.
Yeah.
He's used to teaching 8-year-olds. He took a look at you and go, oh, God, I got to deal with this guy. Anyway, that was Dennis this weekend. I, on the other hand, just hid out in my house, as I always do. Highlight of the weekend, saw Judas and the Black Messiah. Excellent flick. I urge everybody to run, don't walk. Tells the story of the murder of Fred Hampton, the assassination of Fred Hampton. It's kind of misleading, the movie, because it leads you to believe that the murder was carried out by FBI agents. And I suppose ultimately it doesn't really matter like who killed him for the sake of a movie. But in reality, he was killed by Chicago police officers while he was sleeping and he was drugged. In fact, some people say, I've read this, the study of all the drugs in the system indicated that he may have died from just the drugs in the system, as opposed to just like shooting him wouldn't have been was more than enough. It was an assassination of Fred Hampton, the former head of the Black Panthers in the state of Illinois. I urge everybody to check it out. It's really a powerful flick. Lakeith Stanfield, in my humble opinion, D, 2 thumbs way up. He plays William O'Neill, who is the turncoat, the Judas in the title, who becomes a FBI operative and spies on. This is all real, folks. I urge everybody. Mike Irvin wrote a story in the Reader when William O'Neill died. William O'Neill ended up committing suicide, jumping onto, I think it was the Eisenhower Expressway, getting run over. Anyway, he did a story in the Reader about it. William O'Neill died and committed suicide in 1990. Furthermore, I urge everyone, and I put the story up on our website, the interview I did, was about a year or so ago, D? Maybe more than that, with Flint Taylor, who was the lawyer for the Fred Hampton's family, who sued the feds. 14 years this lawsuit was in court. 14 years, Flint Taylor and his partner Jeff Haas and the Fred Hampton survivors were battling the powers that be, who were covering up and burying the truth. Very powerful stuff. I urge everybody, if you haven't already, to check out that interview with Flint Taylor. Maybe I'll bring him back to talk about the movie, his thoughts, and what the legacy of Fred Hampton is in the aftermath of the movie. Anyway, I urge everybody to check out the movie Judas and the Black Messiah. I spent the better part of the weekend trying to get over the impeachment vote. Yes, it was an open and shut case, ladies and gentlemen. Trump told MAGA to take the Capitol. MAGA took the Capitol. Donald Trump pretty much incited a riot, pretty much trying to intimidate senators and congressmen from certifying the election, pretty much an obvious case of a megalomaniac whipping up his believers into forcing Congress to give Trump an election that he lost. And he walked, acquitted, free to run for office again. The Republicans, the so-called law and order party, caved in, and not much law or order, except for 7. Let's give them a shout out. And I had to look that last name up, as you all know, before we came on the show. But I remember the other 6: Romney, Collins, Murkowski, Toomey, Sass, Burr, and Bill Cassidy of Louisiana. The bar is low, but we got to give them credit. And they are under pressure, by the way. Adam Kinzinger, the congressman from Northern Illinois who voted for the articles of impeachment, the story broke yesterday. He's getting crazy letters from whacked out relatives who tell him he joined the devil. It's getting weird out there, folks. Republican Party is really doubling down on this "we love Trump" stuff. In the aftermath of the impeachment vote, I was thinking, who was the most disingenuous, dishonest senator of them all? And the winner, I think we all agree, is Mitch McConnell. Yes, Mitch McConnell. Man, talk about trying to have it 2 ways. He went on and on and on about what a scoundrel Trump is and how he's ruining the Republican Party and damaging the country, how he perpetrated a fraud for weeks, the fraud being that he actually won when, of course, he lost. We all know that. How he incited a riot, how he endangered the very lives of all these people in this room, how he and he alone is responsible for the insurrection. And then, just when you think old Mitch is about ready to vote for conviction, he flips. It's like me flip-flopping on Matt again. I'm not going to do my Mitch McConnell imitation. I'll say that for Dennis. But he voted for acquittal. He said it was too late to impeach Donald Trump because he was out of office.
I was too late. I was acquittal.
You know, if I didn't know better, I thought Mitch McConnell was in Dennis's apartment.
Pizza, French fries. Pizza, French fries.
Anything like French fries and pizza and skiing. Anyway, he said it was too late to impeach him because he's already out of office, even though other officials had been impeached after they had left office. And even though had Mitch McConnell, wanted an impeachment trial before Trump left office, Mitch McConnell, could have done that, but he didn't. Could have had that, but he didn't. Because he wanted this all along. He wanted to be able to say, I'd vote for conviction, but. And even then, he didn't fully commit to voting for conviction. He said, and I'm paraphrasing, if you started the trial on time with Trump in office, I might be persuaded by the argument made. So he comes full circle. He starts by saying he was effectively persuaded by the argument and that Trump incited a riot. And then he ends by acting as though he's not ready to commit one way or another. I don't know what he's afraid of. He's over 80 years old. He's got another 6 years in the Senate. He just got reelected. I don't think anyone is going to beat him in 2026. And it's so long from now, the world could change a million different ways. It just seems so transactional. Like McConnell would have made the commitment to vote against Trump if he could have gotten something for it. But since there was nothing for him to get for it, he won't make it. And you wonder, ladies and gentlemen, why so many tens of millions of citizens have fallen for Donnie Trump. Say what you will about Donnie Trump, words I thought I'd never say, but at least he's not a weasel. We got a great show today, everybody. Alderman Carlos Ramirez-Rosa, yes, indeed, the pride and joy of the 35th Ward, big-time Bernie Sanders supporter.
Carlos. Come on, everybody.
So much to talk about, local and national. Carlos can do it all. Probably talk a little impeachment, talk Bernie and Biden, talk about Lori and the Chicago Teachers Union, talk about reopening the schools, whatever's on Carlos's mind. He is the leader, the dean. Isn't that what they call him, D? The dean of the Democratic Socialists in the Chicago City Council. So Carlos Ramirez-Rosa will be joining us. I'm looking forward to that. We haven't had Carlos on the show in about 6 weeks, young Dennis.
Oh, you've been counting, huh?
Maybe 2 months. I don't know. It's been a while. Too long. So anyway, I reached out to Carlos. He's coming on. He'll be here at 2 o'clock. But before we do that, the young man from Alton, the man that Carlos happily calls Dr. Ski, with the new.
It's my new name now, guys.
Dr. Ski.
I'm Dr. Ski.
With
Find me on the slopes, falling on my ass every 20 seconds.
I almost said that with a straight face. Dr. Ski. Dr. Ski, ladies and gentlemen.
Hey,
with the news.
That's me. Hold on 1 second, Ben.
Yeah, I got you, boys. Hold on, boys. I got you.
Ben, you won't believe this, but I'm out blowing snow here. Ben, you won't believe this. You know we have a newsroom, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Well, I went out and took a look at the newsroom this morning. I couldn't get into the damn thing. Our news crew has been trapped in the newsroom all weekend. I was skiing. These guys have been busting their hump.
Oh, my God.
I know.
That's horrible.
I know. I've been blowing snow all morning. Hold on.
I got you, boys. Hold on. Hang tight. I'll get you.
Oh, all right, cool. We got some leeway here. I can get in. Hold on. Let me get into the newsroom here. Check on these fellers. Hold on a second.
Hey, you good? Here's some soup. Give me the story.
Thank you.
Hey, man, at least you can heat up the soup before you just throw the can at them.
It's one of those where you open up the can, they're fine.
I'll tell you, they're a hardworking bunch in that newsroom, man. And they were snowed in. They couldn't get out. To go to that, where's that place you have there? The wings. They have that chicken wing place in Lawrence.
Oh, yeah.
Go get the chicken wings, man.
Yeah, I don't remember the name of that place, but damn good wings there on Lawrence and Spalding. Go check it out sometime. All right, well, hey. Oh, you guys good? All right, cool.
It sounds like they're skiing down there in the newsroom. It's a big newsroom.
We got news.
Oh, They're hard workers, though. Hard workers.
Yeah, I know. I was just blowing all that snow. Hard work pays off, buddy.
By the way, before you do that, can I just give a shout out to my next door neighbor, Ann? Without Ann, I would have been exhausted, sweaty. But she took her snowblower and blew the snow off of my sidewalk. So when I woke up this morning bright and early at 10 and went outside to shovel, I only had to do the front steps. How about that? Thank you, Ann. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
And you are awesome. You helped out this podcast today. All right, let's find out what's happening in Chicago and or Illinois this afternoon. We begin in Chicago, and we begin with Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot.
This little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine.
All right.
Lord trotted out that speech for someone to the New York Times, huh, D? I didn't mean...
Today, the mayor bundled up and visited the Chicago Fire Department Quinn Fire Academy at 9 a.m. She congratulated new firefighters at a CFD graduation ceremony, and rumor has it they cleared out a little spot and they all made snow angels, Ben.
I believe... Oh, yeah, that's good. That's our mayor. She's just getting to know the firefighters by making snow angels.
Yeah. It's a good time. Love making snow angels. All right, now let's get serious. Last week, the dispute between the mayor's Chicago Public Schools team and the Chicago Teachers Union ended. But did it? Ben? Did it?
I don't think it'll ever end. I don't think Mayor Lori Lightfoot's the kind of person that gets over these things. She's kind of from the Jarofsky school of holding grudges for, 30 years.
Yeah, both parties have worked out a deal. Teachers and students will be returning to their classrooms ASAP just as soon as this giant pile of snow starts to clear out. But also, yes, these two organizations still can't stand each other.
Thank God. Science is back, baby.
Does not take a scientist to figure that one out.
Hey, D, let me ask you a question. Does it take a scientist to know you're not going to have school when you get like 20 inches of snow? Do you think you got to be like Albert Einstein? Remember last week? We've got to get these kidlets back to school. We've run out of runway. Remember that one day they ran out of runway? No more runway. No, the ball's in your court. And then the next thing you know, the temperatures plunge to 0. Get 20 inches of snow. Schools are open, though. We've got the schools open. Oops, 20 inches of snow. All right, stay home another day. Oh, what a city of Chicago. We got to rush to get this thing through in the middle of the worst winter in years. Just so what? Kids, you're going to go to that classroom, kid? You're going to put on that snowsuit? Get in there. Back in the old days, we walked 6 feet of snow. All right? We didn't have virtual teaching. We went to school in the snow. Poor kids. Kids are like trudging through the freezing cold, trudging through the snow. See the pictures last week, Dee, of the first day of school?
Yeah.
The kids are all bundled up. Boy, that looks fun. Nah, I'm just saying, listen, don't listen to me. I was not the greatest of scholars, so maybe I don't appreciate school enough.
And that brings us to Sunday's New York Times. Sunday's New York Times featuring an interview with Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot. That's right, because when you're the mayor of a city, there's no better way to get some positive PR that won't hold you accountable for your actual day-to-day work than doing an interview in a city 800 miles away. Isn't that right, Ben Jarofsky?
Absolutely.
New York Times talked with the mayor about the last month or so of negotiations with the CTU and shared with all of us what she has learned through all of it. New York Times' Dana Goldstein writes, in an interview with the New York Times, Mayor Lightfoot, a Democrat, speaks frankly about her relationship with the Chicago Teachers Union and how she plans to build trust with students' parents. After campaigning to restore an elected school board, she now says that she believes reopening would not have been possible without mayoral control of schools, something that mayors in Los Angeles, San Francisco, and Portland, where schools remain closed, lack. All right, so let's comb through some of this interview with the New York Times, and let's face it, reading other people's interviews with the mayor is the closest we will ever have to getting our own actual interview with Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot.
Well, it's not like we're really trying, so let's be honest about that.
I have 5 questions here from the interview, and we'll get to question number 1 for Mayor Lightfoot. The question was, you said a goal of the negotiation was to help everyone feel safe, not just be safe. Can you expand on that? Lightfoot expanded, saying, quote, this last go-around with the CTU was very different than the 2019 strike and much more complicated because this was about health and safety issues. The emotions and fears were real and raw. I am really glad I got involved personally. I learned a lot about the fears of teachers, hearing it firsthand. Their fears about their household members, not just about themselves, were really real. It was important for us to create a pathway to address those, and I think we did.
Wow. Where do I start? You've given me so much. Really real?
Really real.
Really real?
Really real.
So let me get this straight. So the 2019 strike over nurses and more assistance for the class, that wasn't real. But this is really real. This is not only real, it's really real. And what? You had to sit down. Let me get this straight. You had to sit down and negotiate with the teachers. And by the way, what teacher did you talk to? I'm trying to think of when Lori Lightfoot ever talked to a teacher. There's no teachers in her circle of advisors. There's no public school teachers, I should say. No public school teachers on her school board. No public school teachers on in her city council. I'm like, what teacher did she talk to? So now she knows it's really real. And why would you need to talk to a teacher anyway to know that fears over the pandemic are really real? You were the mayor who did the commercial about don't go Thanksgiving with Granny. Remember that one, Dee? Don't have Thanksgiving with Grandma because you could give her the COVID or she could give you COVID. You could all just drop dead. Remember that commercial? But it took a conversation with a non-existent teacher. I'm starting to think that Lori Lightfoot may have like this friend, the teacher. You know, Dee, remember I already tell you sometimes I'm walking down the street and I have my secret best friend that no one can see, only I can see, who's like a really great basketball player. And we talk about how we played basketball together. And it's like my secret best friend that nobody can see. I'm starting to think that Mayor Lori Lightfoot's like that with a teacher. She has a secret best friend that nobody knows about and nobody can see. And this public school teacher told her, Mayor Lightfoot, teachers are really, really scared. And Lori Lightfoot go, until I talked to you, secret best friend, I didn't know that. So yes, this notion that somehow or other, it took 80 tortuous meetings. Let me remind you that. They bragged about that. I can't remember, Dee, did she brag about having the 80 meetings to the New York Times reporter, the 80 meetings with the teachers?
Oh, I think they got in there.
They dragged Jesse. Hey, Jesse Sharkey. Hey, Stacey Davis Gates, we're going to make your life freaking miserable. We're going to drag you into a meeting with the HR guy. Who's going to read you the school code for the next hour. I don't know what teacher she was talking to that told her it was really real. I don't even know why she had to talk to a teacher to know it was really real. She just thought that like the teachers weren't paying attention to the COVID. They were just enjoying this time offs. You know, all they had to do was do a Zoom meeting thing, teach kids virtually. They were just enjoying it. It was so much fun. Now, Dee, after she talked to her imaginary teacher friend, she discovered it was really real. Really real. Sounds like a rock group. Really real. Really, really real. Really? Real.
Really real.
Really? Really? Really real? Really, really?
Okay, on to question number 2 from Dana Goldstein. The question to the mayor. This is a really real question, guys. There's concern in education that some of these labor fights are so difficult that all of the focus has been there instead of on engaging in dialogue with the many parents who have significant misgivings about their children returning to school. Mayor Lightfoot's answer? A lot of our residents are still very scared. They have great concerns about the virus. So addressing the needs of parents is really Now, anytime I see the word really, I can't think of it really real, of parents is really part and parcel of addressing the needs of our larger resident population through education, through outreach. It's also important for us to talk about what's happened to our children during this. In this pandemic, social life has been completely torn from so many of our young people, our 3, 4, 5-year-olds. Their social, emotional learning is absolutely central to their growth, and yet we see them learning on screens. We know that's not the best way to learn.
I agree with her. Can't argue with anything she said there. It's really not a good way to learn on a screen. Although there was a time, D, in a previous administration, so I'm not in any way blaming Mayor Lori Lightfoot, they were farming out charter school deals, like virtual companies. Remember that? It's funny how things change. These charter schools that were like virtual, online, they were really real. That's how you really real. So it's funny. I guess we've evolved. I should take it as a sign of progress that now virtual. Our mayor has decided that the teachers union was right, and it's not a good idea to do virtual learning. So I think that's a sign of progress. But I can't argue with anything she said there, D.
Lightfoot went on to say that she was fine with the fact that President Joe Biden kind of waffled on his support for the mayor's game plan. But to be fair, he didn't really announce his support for the teachers union either. It was just a bunch of unprepared words, poorly pieced together at the last minute.
Play the radio. Make sure make sure you have the record player on at night. The phone. Make sure the kids hear words.
Wait a minute. Did you write what you just read, or were you quoting Dana from the New York Times?
No, that was me.
Oh, because that didn't sound like anything I would read. I can't see the New York Times saying that President Joe waffled. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, that sounds like Dr. D.
Dr. Ski. All right, on to question number 3. Dana Goldstein asked Lori Lightfoot, "You have said that you want to be the voice for parents and students in this debate, but some families were troubled by the district's move to lock teachers out of their remote learning platforms if they refuse to go back to the classrooms. We know a majority of Chicago parents who completed a survey said they wanted to continue with remote learning for now. Do you feel that the threat of lockouts may have seeded distrust?" The mayor responded, "I understand that the notion that we would lock teachers out was disturbing to all. It should be. But it should also be disturbing when teachers say, 'I don't care what you say. I don't care what you do. I'm not going to abide by the contract or the rules that have been set from my place of employment.' That's chaos."
Okay, all right, chaos. It's like that scene in The Joker where Gotham City is just filled with rioters. I mean, the reality is we're in the middle of a pandemic, and we've been told for months and months how dangerous it is. And we've been told for months and months that everybody except for the absolutely essential workers who keep our economy going should stay at home. That's what we've been told for months and months. And now we're suddenly being told that, we've learned a few things and it's okay to go back to school. And if you don't believe me, we will have 80 negotiations with the HR guy to try to convince you.
Wait, 80?
So it's missing. Yeah, I think she said there was 80 meetings.
80?
Yeah.
80. Wow, that's pretty impressive.
I believe there were 80 meetings. I at one point it was 70. And then like within a week, they had like 10 more meetings and it was all of a sudden 80. And I remember Lori Lightfoot and Janice Jackson would come out and to really accentuate this point. And this is the thing that you got to understand about reporters in Chicago. They got to, you give them a number and they're there and they're yours forever. We've had 80 meetings.
78, 79, 80.
80.
Wow.
Reporters are like, 80. And they write it in their book and they type it up. I know, because I've been one of these reporters. They had 80, and then they go on TV. They had 80 meetings. 80. And then they're on Channel 11, and it's WTTW, and they got Jesse Sharkey at the table, and they go, "Jesse Sharkey, you've had 80 meetings." and you still couldn't come to a decision. 80 meetings. And Jesse Sharkey's like, 80 meetings. Okay. I forget where I was at the start of this.
That's okay. We'll move on to question number 4.
It was such a great thing. I was going, but I forgot where I was.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll remember it.
Snow.
Question number 4 from Dana Goldstein to Lori Lightfoot from the New York Times. I have used the word feisty to describe the Chicago Teachers Union. You might choose other words. How would you describe the role that CTU plays and its history? Lightfoot responded. Let me put it in a context of labor across the city. We have relationships with over 40 organized labor unions.
Oh, boy.
We have labor peace with almost every single one, except for 2. The Chicago Fraternal Order of Police, which has a lot of right-wing Trump aspirations. What's up, Johnny C? And the Chicago Teachers Union. When you have unions that have other aspirations beyond being a union and maybe being something akin to a political party, then there's always going to be conflict.
Yes, well, this is Mayor Lightfoot's strategy. And actually, she inherited this from Rahm. She learned this one from Rahm. And Rahm would go around, he would say the same thing. I got peace with all the unions. That's a terrible Rahm. And that's more like a Daley. That's maybe like channeling my inner Richard M. Daley. And I realized, when I go back in time, like Richard M. Daley was so many years ago that a lot of people don't remember him. This is sad. It's been 10 years since Richard M. Daley. And I realized like millennials just have this vague memory of him. So when I do Rahm, my imitation of Rahm, it's my imitation of Daley. But anyway, I digress. Rahm was a big one at that. He had he made peace, quote unquote, with smaller unions that didn't really have the power to resist him. And he said, we all agree. It's only this unruly teachers union that I can't agree with. He left the Fraternal Order of Police out of it. He wasn't ready to fight like a two-front war, union war. So he was like, the teachers were the bad guys and gals. And they've always been, or at least they've always been since Karen Lewis took control in 2010 and her coalition of supporters. And so ever since then, as far as mayors are concerned, as far as editorial boards are concerned, and as far as corporate Chicago is concerned, the teachers are the bad boys and girls of Chicago. And if only they would be reasonable, if only they would do what they're told, if only they would shut up and go back to the classroom. But this is what I was getting at, D. And I will never let this one go undiscussed. Lori Lightfoot never reached out to the union at this critical time to say, what can we do to figure this out? Despite what she tells Dana Goldstein. I actually didn't even say that she did that with Goldstein. Lori Lightfoot allowed her minions at the Board of Education to engage the teachers union in a series of discussions that dragged on forever instead of just reaching out. And then she pretends like it was the course of that negotiations for whatever it's been, a month or so, that enabled her to see and learn that teachers are scared. Like she wouldn't have known that at the outset. And so I just feel as though the teachers union is a very convenient tool for Lori Lightfoot right now. And I gotta give her credit, D. I'm gonna say something positive about Mayor Lori Lightfoot. It's a very sharp, a smart tactic. I believe that turning the teachers union into your enemy will help her on the north side of Chicago, where more well-to-do people live. They're not that favorable to the teachers union. I talk to my neighbors from time to time. I hear what they have to say. They've been saying essentially the same thing. This is Lori Lightfoot's base. They've been saying the same thing since the days of Rahm. I remember when Rahm sent his precinct captains out in 2015, going door to door, they would say, Chuy Garcia is going to raise your taxes and give the money to the unions. I go, well, what unions? And they made it clear it was the teachers union. So it's like they've invested in this political notion that the Chicago Teachers Union is some far left outfit that is so extreme, beyond Bernie Sanders even. And all the Dems on the north side of Chicago have bought into it. And I think it's a smart political tactic on her part. Does it make for genuine labor peace? No. Is it good for the school children of Chicago? No. Is it good? Does it foster like a good working relationship between the people who run the city of Chicago and the people who teach the kids? No, of course not. But that's not what this is about. This is about building up your base of support so you can win re-election and whenever the next election is. So I think it's a very brilliant move. It's working. D, I can hear it in the voices of Northsiders around me who really don't like the teachers union and kind of miss the days of Rahm, you know? And so, yeah, I think it's a very politically successful tactic and strategy to follow if you want to hold on to your support on the north side of Chicago among Dems.
All right. A little Lori praise. Maybe we'll get that interview after all.
I'll say, I doubt it, D.
On to question number 5.
We agree just to talk about football. Bring it on. We'll talk about the Bears.
Okay, no sports. All right. On to question number 5 from the New York Times and Dana Goldstein. I have noticed that some big cities with mayoral control of schools are open or moving toward concrete reopening plans. And some big cities with school boards like Los Angeles or San Francisco or Seattle seem stuck. In the past, you supported bringing back an elected school board. Where do you stand on that now? Lightfoot responded. We would have never opened without mayoral control. It's quite clear. The fact that LA and San Francisco had to sue to force the conversation about reopening, look, what's easy, the path of least resistance, the political expediency would have been to do nothing and just let the unions dictate what the state of play was going to be in the education. That's never, ever going to be the path that I take.
Wow. First of all, let me point out that Chicago is the only municipality in the state of Illinois without an elected school board. And somehow or other, every single other municipality, big and small, has figured out a way to work with its teachers to either open the schools or close the schools or reopen the schools. It happens all the time. And by the way, it may happen in Chicago. We could have a spike. I don't want to see a spike, but we could have a spike that would force the mayor to close the schools again. So this notion that this is so Chicago. So Chicago. This is the pap they feed you, Chicagoans. The city is so unruly, and the teachers' union is so unreasonable, and it takes a strong, powerful mayor to make it all work. This was the joke about Rahm Emanuel that we used to do all the time. Like when New York was struggling with its transit system, Rahm wrote that wretched, well, somebody wrote it. He put his name on it. I actually don't think he wrote it or read it. But anyway, that essay, the New York Times, where else? Want to fill the pages with propaganda from Chicago mayor? Go to the New York Times. They're only happy to oblige. And you got the feeling from it. That was the joke we made. I was back on the radio station in those days, D. It's a little too critical of Rahm. May have hastened my departure. Anyway, you got the feeling that Rahm wanted credit for absolutely everything that was good about transportation. It was like he himself was driving the trains, and that's why we do the joke about Rahm driving the trains. And it's the same thing with Lori Lightfoot, and it was the same thing with Richard M. Daley. This notion in Chicago that it takes a powerful mayor to make the city work. Without the mayor, it would just be chaos. And I always say this is a great debate I have with Kenny Davis. I go, Ken, 90% of what happens in the city of Chicago would happen even if we didn't have a mayor. Those trains would be running, those garbage trucks would be moving, they'd be plowing the alleys, the streets, etc. We don't need a mayor to do that. It's just this notion, this powerful mayor who's in charge, makes people feel really secure. And so she's feeding into that. Somehow or other, Evanston has figured this out. Wilmette, Winnetka, they all have elected school boards. It's unruly. Need a powerful mayor, control city. Yeah, by the way, if she was the powerful mayor 2 months ago, all she had to do was call Jesse Sharkey. What's it going to take? But you see, that's not how powerful mayors operate. That's a sign of weakness. A powerful mayor reaches out to the Chicago Teachers Union? You can't do that. It's like Mayor Rahm. Everybody was mourning Karen Lewis last week when she died. Obviously, nobody's ever learned anything from how Mayor Rahm treated Karen Lewis. He sat her down. He said, look, we're going to have a longer school day. I'm going to cut your pay, and that's the way it's going to be. And you're going to sell that to those little commies in your union. That's what he told her. They dropped the F-bomb a few times. And she said, well, let's not just talk about a longer school day. Let's work together and have a more meaningful school day. Otherwise, it's just childcare. And he told her, F you, Lewis. And then they had the big strike. And Rahm thought, oh, all of the city will support me because they believe that the way to deal with teachers and the way to deal with the teachers is to sit them in the office and tell them what to do. And I'll tell you what, it worked on the north side, D. As I said, I think that attitude is very strong and prevalent on the north side of Chicago. It's a wealthier group of, we talked about this with Sam Holloway. We got to bring Sam Holloway back, D. We got to bring Sam Holloway back to firefighter. Get his opinion on what firefighters think. She just got finished saying she gets along with all the unions except for the teachers and the cops.
I mean, and that rumor is she was doing snow angels with the fire departments.
We could fire. But Sam Holloway was not one of the firefighters doing those snow angels. Anyway, so yes. So clearly she's taking a page for Rahm. It would be all chaos if it wasn't for the mayor. And so everybody in the city of Chicago is supposed to say, thank you, mayor. Thank you, mayor. Well, the New York Times is saying, thank you, mayor. Thank you, mayor. And a lot of people on the north side are saying, thank you, mayor. Thank you. I don't know about the rest of the city, though.
Now on to Monday. And you'd better believe that the mayor's Sunday New York Times softball session is over because we're back to the Chicago coverage. The Chicago Sun-Times and Fran the Woman Spielman said, enough of this hippie kumbaya crap. She brought us all back to reality by calling a little BS on her New York Times interview. Step back, Goldstein. Watch how it's done. Spielman writes, Mayor Lori Lightfoot campaigned as a staunch proponent of an elected school board only to repeatedly block what she calls, quote, an unwieldy bill that would triple the size of the board to 21 members and a citywide elected president. Now she's telling the New York Times Chicago public schools would, quote, never have opened without mayoral control, fueling speculation about whether she will ever deliver on that pivotal campaign promise.
She will never deliver on it. It's just let's end that now. Go.
The interview was conducted after the bitter negotiations that produced an agreement to gradually reopen CPS for pre-K special education clusters and students in kindergarten through 8th grade. In it, Lightfoot argued that the negotiations were difficult because the CTU has political aspirations. The mayor was quoted as saying, I think ultimately they'd like to take over not only Chicago public schools, but take over running the city government. Lightfoot pushed back when the interviewer noted the CTU, quote, might say that its larger aspirations are to increase funding for schools and to achieve goals like police reform so students are not criminalized. I don't believe that's correct. I mean, if you look at their spending, there's a clear indication of what their larger ambitions are, she said. Lightfoot once again noted she has, quote, relationships and signed contracts with over 40 unions with 2 exceptions, the Fraternal Order of Police and the CTU. Spielman then did a little interviewing of her own, Ben, and talked with the Chicago Teachers Union. And you know, when you're trying your best to counteract a Chicago New York Times piece, sadly, an interview with CTU President Jesse Sharkey just won't cut it.
Right now,
Fran reached out to the VP, SDG, Stacey Davis Gates, and per usual, because she's a badass, SDG was SDG. Look, she's going to be honest. And people, get ready for more elected school board discussion. CTU Vice President Stacey Davis Gates said Lightfoot's claim that CPS would, quote, never have opened without mayoral control is par for the course for a politician who said one thing on the campaign trail and another once she took office. SDG said, quote, our mayor has misled us on a number of issues. Lincoln Yards, Hillco, Anjanette Young, No Cop Academy. Her shift on the elected representative school board is consistent with other misleading actions. To exalt mayoral control in a post-Trump America is the wrong direction. Democrats should be prioritizing and amplifying democracy. An elected school board is about democracy for Chicagoans. One would even say that it is a voting rights issue. This is a district that serves predominantly students of color. Why shouldn't their parents have an opportunity to take a vote for the futures of their neighborhoods, their schools, and their children? You had an entire season of families, parents, and students lifting their voices for what they needed from our school system, only to be shunned and muted throughout the process with our mayor. Those people, parents, families, students, deserve to have a voice, a seat at the table, and the ability to create policy that represents real justice and equity. Davis Gates also pushed back against Lightfoot's claim that the CTU aspires to take over the school system and city government. What the union wants is what's best for students, their families, teachers, families, and the city at large. She said, quote, "Our members know better than anyone the intersection of housing insecurity, food insecurity, addiction, racism, segregation, over-policing in our school communities. That's called advocacy. That's called common good bargaining. That's called being attentive and empathetic to the needs of the people we serve in the city." For the life of me, I don't know why any elected official would make paraprofessionals, school clerks, clinicians, and teachers their enemy.
Yeah. By the way, Lori Lightfoot did strike a deal, sign a contract with the teachers union. So she's keeping this thing going too. And like I said, there's a larger political game happening here. The teachers supported Tony Preckwinkle. Lori Lightfoot never forgave them. And I don't think we'll ever get beyond that, D. And that's just a reality. And yes, Lori Lightfoot broke pretty much every significant promise she made in terms of an elected school board, in terms of TIF reform, in terms of police reform. And a lot of it has to do, I'm going to give her benefit of the doubt, that when she took office, she realized that if you give control over the schools to an elected school board, that's less power for her. It'll take a genius to know that the more authority you give it to a school board, the less authority you have. She didn't want to give it up. It's the same thing with the TIFs. It's the same thing with the police department. We're still waiting for the oversight board. Remember, she promised that as well. And so, yes, there was in the France Spielman's article, she wanted to quote Michael Scott. This is a favorite theme that you'll see in the Sun-Times coverage, which is that it's different to be a candidate than to be an actual mayor, and that candidates will say any old thing to win over the Ben Joravskys of the world. And then once they're in office, it's like, all right, forget that hippie stuff. That's just something we tell Mick Dumke and Ben Joravsky at the Hideout. And it does feed a lot of cynicism. You know, you wonder why, what was the last election day? They were so excited, 35% turnout. Nobody believes anything a politician says. And as soon as it's over, they say, yeah, of course, we'll say any old thing. This is Michael Scott, the alderman. This is his explanation, the mayor's ally. Oh, yeah, they just say that when they're running, but when they get elected, it's something else. So why would anybody have any faith in a public official? I would have had more respect, I suppose, for Lori Lightfoot if as a candidate she said, no, I'm not for an elected school. But I think Bill Daley may have been the only one who said that. You know, but it's like, no, I don't want an elected school board. Elected school board is it's too messy. I just want to control. By the way, why even have an appointed school board? What do they do? You know what I'm saying, D? She appointed first thing Lori Lightfoot did was she made Mayor Rahm's school board members resign. She accepted her resignation, and then she appointed her own. I can't see anything fundamentally different between the way Rahm's school board acts and Lori's school board acts. They just are quiet and do whatever the mayor says and never raise it. I didn't hear a peep out of the school board during the whole showdown that just happened between Mayor Lori Lightfoot and the teachers. I never heard them say one word. Miguel DeValle, the former state senator, was the president. I didn't hear him. At one point, the teachers union had a protest outside his house, D. So look, the reality is that when the New York Times comes to Chicago and studies Chicago, it's this very bizarre attitude that they have, as though like it's this unruly, not that bright city that wants to be New York, but is not quite smart enough to be New York. And it's just kind of like these dumb people just sort of sludging around. But what they need is like a really tough mayor. And that's what keeps them in order. And you can learn from that. And they got this thing about the Chicago mayors, like having this sense of what you have to do to bring order from chaos. The New York Times is obsessed with that. They love Mayor Daley. They're like, he was the education mayor. They talked about, like, he figured out something about public schools that no one had ever figured out before. And then, of course, he left, and Rahm said, oh, no, it's not really that good at all. So then they just completely, the New York Times, forgot everything they said great about Mayor Daley and started saying, Mayor Rahm's going to make it a longer school day. What a great visionary. I remember the interviews that David Brooks, the columnist, and Tom Friedman, and the other columnists did with Rahm, the great progressive who's practical and yet a visionary. I'm like, oh, my God, you guys actually believe this stuff? There's just something about a New York Times reporter or columnist and a Chicago mayor. It's just like the love they have for that mayor. It's like, oh, they figured it out. And everybody else is like a bit player in this drama. The unwieldy teachers union that's too radical for its own good. The right-wing cops. the rabble in the Chicago City Council. You know, and every now and then they'll interview some lefty hippie guy, you know, some professor. No, they always bring in a professor will now explain what's going on. This is like classic New York Times.
We got an interview with the professor. Do you wear glasses? No, I do not. Can you just put some on? Look smarter, please.
That's New York Times, man. They love Chicago mayors. I'll tell you what, if it was up to the New York Times, no Chicago mayor would ever be defeated because they just love them. I guess the further away from Chicago, the better those mayors seem.
Yeah, so I'm sure we'll stop talking about this story one of these days. I'm not sure. But that's the latest of what's going on there. And actually, we do have a response from one of Mayor Lightfoot's city council members. That's right. An alderman has weighed in on all this. So, Ben, what do you say we end it out with another episode of everyone's favorite daily Chicago political drama? People, it's episode 317 of A Mayor and Her Alderman.
A mayor and her alderman.
You have to be a good neighbor. You have to be a good neighbor. Otherwise, I'm going to be up your butt every day.
Okay.
Alderman Tom Tunney, yeah. With Cinnamon Roll Speakeasy.
No, today's episode is not about Tom Tunney, and no, it's not brought to you by Cinnamon Rolls. Today's star of A Mayor and Her Alderman is the 24th Ward Alderman. Ben, who would that be?
Well, come on, I just mentioned him. Junior, Michael Scott Jr.
All right, just making sure you still got it, buddy. You still got it. Lightfoot's hand-picked chairman of the City Council's Education Committee said he can understand why the mayor is backing away from the elected school board she promised. We have the quote from Michael Scott. The quote is, quote, "It's always easier to campaign than it is to govern and connect the complexities that exist between CTU and CPS, and you being the chief executive and you having to wear the jacket for that all the time," Scott said. "I can't speak for her, but it would be very difficult for me to say I'm going to relinquish control, then ultimately wear what happens with the children in the Chicago public school system. It's hard to do."
Yes, like I said, just say any old thing to get elected and then do what you want to do once elected. And then you wonder why 70% of the city does not participate, does not vote. And it works well for Lori Lightfoot. If 70% of the city, if 100%, can you imagine that, D? I mean, in a million years, you'd never get 100%. So let's just say 90% of the people in the city of Chicago actually voted, what it would be like. It would be just a totally different city. So, yeah, it works well. Don't believe a word I think Jay Marie was the one who chastised me for believing what Lori Lightfoot's told.
Well, it's more than Jay Marie on the live stream chat that do that.
Yeah, what's that?
No, it's more than Jay Marie, trust me.
Yeah, guys, what a dummy I was. She looked me in the eye and said, yes, I believe in an elected school board. Yes, I understand that this is just politics, and whatever Stacey Davis Gates says now doesn't really matter. And then when this is over, I'll reach out my hand and shake her hand and say, kumbaya, yes. I want the teachers union to be a partner with me and everything. Now here we are 2 years later. And she's telling the eager New York Times, who's just eager to print everything. By the way, you know who ran with it is like all the Trump newspapers. I saw this day online. They're like, they quoted that dastardly. Because one thing the Trumpsters despise even more than they don't like Dems is like the radical left. And to them, that's what the union is. So that's just feeding them. It's interesting. They didn't mention, the Trump newspapers didn't mention her takedown of the Fraternal Order of Police, but they talked about the radical teachers union. So yeah, I guess Michael Scott is telling us what we ought to know. Never, ever, ever believe anything Mayor Lightfoot tells you when she's out campaigning, because she's going to do whatever she wants once elected. All right, thank you, Michael Scott. Now that I know, I'll take that into consideration. So there you go, D.
And there it was, the latest episode of everyone's favorite Chicago daily political drama, episode 317 of A Mayor and Her Alderman.
A mayor and her alderman.
I want an answer. It's not something you ignore.
I think you're 100% full of shit is what I think. If you think we
No offense, well, fuck you then. Who are you to tell me I'm full of shit?
So, hey, we got to send that to Dana Goldstein. She'd be like, what? Oh, my God. I thought everybody loved Lori Lightfoot except for Stacey Davis Gates.
Well, he did want an answer. All right, everybody. More aldermanic coverage coming up. That's right. Will it be episode 318 of A Mayor and Her Alderman? I don't know. We're going to have to wait to find out. Carlos Ramirez-Rosa, the 35th Ward Alderman, will be joining us in moments. All right, so don't go anywhere. Remember, you can find the Ben Joravsky Show online at Benny J Show, BENNY, the letter J Show, on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can always send the Ben Joravsky Show an email, bennyjshow@gmail.com. Leave your name and where you're from if you'd like us to read your comment on the air. Also, we have a phone number. It's true, 708-658-4788. That number again is 708-658-4788. Leave us a voicemail. We would love to hear from you. Remember, chicagoreader.com/Joravsky, Jora, V as in victory, SKY, for all the information you need to know about the latest book coming out, the greatest hits book from our very own Ben Joravsky. And you can sign up if you want to help support the Ben Joravsky Show. Become a Benhead. Are you a Benhead? That means you really like the show, dedicated show listener, a Benhead. Are you a Benhead? Well, go to chicagoreader.com/Joravsky, Jora, V as in victory, SKY, and find out how you can support the show. When we come back, Carlos Ramirez-Rosa, it's the Ben Joravsky Show, snowed in from my apartment and his attic.
You have to be a good neighbor.
I want an answer. I want an answer.
You have to be a good neighbor.
I want an answer.
You have to be a good neighbor.
I want an answer.
You have to be a good neighbor. You have to be a good neighbor. Otherwise, I'm going to be up your butt every day.
I'm sick of it! I'm sick of it!
I want an answer. It's not something you ignore.
I think you're 100% full of shit is what I think. If you think we
No offense, well, fuck you then. Who are you to tell me I'm full of shit?
Read the Chicago Reader to get up to speed on what's what in Chicago. Culture, food, arts and entertainment, weekly concert listings, weekly event listings, the environment, travel. I can continue, but you get the point. And for all of you Chicago political junkies, raw weekly columns on real city politics from Maya Dukmasova and our very own Ben Jarofsky. The Chicago Reader, free to the public in newsstands throughout the city and online at chicagoreader.com. Read it now and be a more informed Chicagoan.
Large retail and e-commerce companies have made it easy for consumers to buy just about anything and everything online. But there's a new company in Chicago that is helping small businesses compete with the big guys so they can offer the same flexibility and speed of receiving their purchases. La Move is an app-based, same-day courier service that helps with delivery for small businesses. The goal at La Move is simple: help local Chicago small businesses by providing affordable delivery for their customers. La Move merges the rideshare model with courier services to deliver anything from flowers to furniture and everything in between. Right now, La Move is offering free delivery for 1 month. Visit lalamove.com. That's LALAmove.com to learn more.
Hey, Ben, you like coffee?
Yeah.
Do you like cocoa?
Yeah.
All right. Do you like socially gathering with people in the year 2021?
After I get my vaccine.
Okay, well, I think you may like this news. Join the Andersonville and Lincoln Square Ravenswood Chamber of Commerce in celebrating a first-time partnership for the coffee and cocoa crossover. Oh my goodness, Ben is cheering right now. Curated packages are now on sale. Packages that celebrate the collective local coffee shops, cafes, and businesses in each Chicago neighborhood. Packages are themed around coffee, tea, and chocolate and include at-home barista gadgets, local treats, a limited edition crossover mug, and redemption offers at participating locations. The crossover is part of Andersonville Haig Fest this February. Purchase packages until February 18th at 12 p.m. Central Time and pick up locally February 19th or 20th. And hey, remember, it's Andersonville Haig Fest this February 18th. Purchase at lsr.market. That's LSR Market. Coffee and cocoa, huh?
Sounds good.
It does sound good. All right, everybody. We're waiting for Carlos Ramirez-Rosa to join us here on the program. Ben, what are you planning on discussing with Carlos? Give people a little heads up here. And maybe for those who are like, I don't know, maybe I'm going to listen. I don't know, maybe not. Let's try and keep these people on board.
I'm definitely going to ask him what his thoughts are about Lori Lightfoot's comments in the New York Times regarding the Chicago Teachers Union and just the whole notion of Lori Lightfoot appealing to the New York Times, getting her message out, and see what he has to say about that.
All right, we got him.
Right on time. The man, the myth, the legend, the pride and joy of Logan Square, 35th Ward Alderman, Carlos Ramirez-Rosa. Carlos, I can't remember, and I humbly apologize for forgetting this every time. Are you also the Democratic committeeman of the 35th Ward?
You know, I was for my first term, but we believe in sharing leadership and building up leaders in the 35th Ward. So one of our independent political organization leaders, Anthony Casada, he's the committeeman now. Okay.
I remember that you were involved in the replacement of Louis Arroyo. I remember talking to you about that.
That's right. I was the committeeman at that juncture.
Wait, we'll get to that. Get your thoughts.
And that's why I wanted out, Ben. I was like, get me out of here, you know?
Well, as long as we're on the subject, I know you're a political junkie, and I know you follow everything from afar. So even though I didn't run this by in the pre-show planning texting we did. Your thoughts on what went down on the north side with Kelly Cassidy and the vacancy created by Heather Staines, and just in general, Carlos, this notion how to handle a vacancy when a state senator or a state rep just walks away right in the middle, well, at the outset, in this case of Heather Staines of her term. Your thoughts on this in general?
Well, I think it's important that, one, we recognize the process laid out in the Illinois Constitution, right, which says that Democratic committeemen or Republican committeemen or Green Party committeemen, in theory, right, whichever party holds the seat, that the elected representative of those voters in that area then collectively decide, right, who should continue on with that seat. And I think that makes a lot of sense, right, because if the voters elected a Democrat and they have Democratic elected officials that they've elected to represent the Democratic Party, I think it makes sense that when you have these, vacancies that are created, that the party temporarily fill that seat. Now, if there's the ability to have a special election, right, then absolutely have the special election. And that's stipulated in the Illinois Constitution. But a lot of times these vacancies pop up in such a way that there's not an ability to make to have a special election. So in the context where the committeemen then have to appoint, I think that they should try and make the process as democratic as possible. They should have it out in the light of day. No backroom deals, let anyone come forward and put their name forward, have a candidate for them, let people get to know the folks that are vying for this position. And then within your own ward, have your own, process. In the 35th ward, we had a vacancy when Senator Iris Martinez, when she decided to become our clerk of the court, and the vacancy was created. And what we said was anyone that wants to run for this position needs to come before the 35th Ward organization so that the members, the progressive folks in this district can have a conversation and figure out who they think is best suited to fill this vacancy. And we had a good process, and we ended up with a wonderful individual that filled that seat, Christina Paccioni-Zayas. I will say, I know Mike Simmons personally. I've known him for many years. I think he's a great guy. We bumped heads when he was working for Rahm Emanuel, but, that's water under the bridge. That was quite some time ago, and I think he's going to be an excellent state senator.
All right, very good. Yes, and he obviously did an outstanding job of convincing committeemen in that area to support him, because I predicted openly, I thought for certain Kelly Cassidy would get the gig, and he clearly did a better job of organizing the committeemen, and so they move on. And like you, Carlos, unlike you, I've never met Michael, but this is how open-minded I am. And I think you'll be really impressed. I am not going to hold it against him that he worked for Mayor Rahm Emanuel. How about that, Carlos? That's just the new me, the open-minded me, okay? You know what? We all have our, stumbles when we're young. Nobody's perfect.
That's right.
We
believe in restorative processes.
Yes, I believe in restorative justice. I think it was just momentarily he was just wooed by Rahm's neoliberal rap. And he goes, oh, that makes sense to me. But now he's seen the light, and he's going to be a true progressive. All right, let's get down to business. And we've been talking a lot today about Mayor Lori Lightfoot's comments to the New York Times regarding the Chicago Teachers Union, about elected school board, and just sort of her worldview about how she handled the recent negotiations with the teachers union over opening up schools. So these are three things I'd love to get your opinion on, all three of them: opening the schools, Lori's relationship with the union, elected school board. Which one do I start with? Well, let's start with Lori Lightfoot and her attitude toward the Chicago Teacher Union. What's your thoughts about this, Carlos?
Well, I think it's really interesting because that conspiracy theory that Mayor Lightfoot put forward in the New York Times, that, the CT was plotting to take over the city, is just so devoid from reality. It's difficult to understand. Does she actually really believe that? And if she actually really believes that, then what that leads me to believe is that, our political leadership knows so little about unionism that they just don't understand that the reason why CTU engages in these fights is because they have a responsibility to the workers of CPS to make sure that they get a fair contract. And in this instance, because of mayoral control, Mayor Lightfoot is the boss of the Chicago Public Schools. And so if you're a union that's serious about building power and winning a fair contract, you have to figure out every single avenue possible to pressure the boss to give you a fair contract. And so what that means is you're going to look to build allies in city council because you're regulated by the state of Illinois, which gave the mayor control over CPS. You're going to look to build allies in the state of Illinois and in the state house. If there was an elected school board, that elected school board then becomes the boss. And so your attention and your resources are going to switch to the elected school board, to making sure that you have allies and good people that understand public education, that respect teachers on that school board. So this notion that this is all just petty politics, that they just dislike Lori Lightfoot for who she is personally, it's a bunch of nonsense. Come on, read a book about labor relations. Learn a little bit about Unionism 101. It's about the workers versus the boss. And when the boss is a jerk and wants to bust the union and not give you good working conditions, the workers who have a union and know their power and their strength, they're going to come together and they're going to fight. And that's going to lead to labor conflict. So it just really baffles me, makes me sad because I even hear some reporters who I respect and love, they'll tell me, oh, well, don't you think that this is just, petty politics? This is just personal squabbles. I'm saying, no, it's a freaking labor conflict, right? The mayor, who's the boss, wants one thing, lower wages, bad, unsafe working conditions, and the union's not going to accept it. And of course, then you're going to have conflict and you might even have some strikes.
All right, now let me ask you this. Here I'm going to play devil's advocate and take Lori Lightfoot's side. Do you really believe that the mayor of Chicago wants bad, unsafe working conditions?
Which you did. You did, Ben. You voted for Lori. So.
That was a low blow. I'll tell you what, ladies and gentlemen, when he was at Whitney Young, he was a great debater, and he knew where the weak spot was. He went right for it. Yes, I did. I actually believed everything she told me and Mick Dumke when she was on the Hideout stage, Carlos. I believed her. And now Michael Scott, we're on a tangent here, but Michael Scott, your esteemed colleague in the city council, alderman of the 24th ward, is saying, Ben, what an idiot you were. You should never, ever, ever believe anything a campaigner says. They just lie.
No. See, I'm going to have to disagree with Michael there. There's a study that looked at politicians and what percent of their promises they keep. On average, most politicians keep 80% of their promises. I think if you were to do an analysis of Mayor Lori Lightfoot, she'd have an F, right? 80% is like a B normally in most grading rubrics. I think she'd be at like 40%. And so the reality is that most politicians, right, they know that when you go and you tell the voters, hey, I'm going to do X, Y, Z, that there's a general expectation you're going to do X, Y, Z. The voters will forgive you some things because, of course, you don't know everything when you're running for office and things change once you do get into office. But by and large, elected officials keep 80% of their promises. Mayor Lori Lightfoot has not done that. So she sold herself. But the thing is, she did change over the campaign trail. When I first spoke with her, I spoke with her for an hour at length because she was looking for my endorsement at that time. And she had recently announced she was not the candidate who ended up facing Mayor Lightfoot. Tony Preckwinkle months later. It was a totally different candidacy. She moved to the left as time went on, and I thought that those were genuine positions she was adopting, but it was just all lip service in order to close the space that existed between her and Tony Preckwinkle and try and posture herself as the progressive choice. But we are on a tangent here. We were talking about, Mayor Lightfoot and CPS.
Yeah. So do you actually believe, I don't know if you were just on a roll there, but you said something like the mayor does not want safe working conditions in the public schools. Do you believe that?
Well, look, I believe that you got to listen to the people that are on the front lines, and those are the workers. And in this instance, these are essential workers, teachers. And if they're telling you, look, we don't have the conditions where we feel safe, then I'm going to say, look, if the boss is pushing for something else, then I'm going to say the boss doesn't want safe working conditions because I'm always going to take the side of the workers. But what I will say is that I think that Mayor Lightfoot is a neoliberal mayor. She accepts the paradigm of neoliberalism, which is austerity, which is, we're not going to ask the ultra rich to pay their fair share. We're not going to ask big corporations to pay their fair share. We're going to, nickel and dime people and work off of the limited regressive taxes that we have. And if we're not able to fund it, then that means we have to cut things. And so CPS for years has been experiencing that austerity, cut after cut after cut. And so when you have a situation like a pandemic that requires the use of major resources to mitigate that risk, I think in this instance, Lori Lightfoot was just saying, well, in theory, we'd love to be able to do more to protect the students and the workers, but we're not able to. So just wear a mask and crack open a window. And that was essentially what Lori Lightfoot's position was everything's fine. The little kids, they have little tiny lungs, so they're not the best spreaders of COVID-19. This is my layman's way of saying it, but, they have little lungs, so they're not, spreading COVID like adults. and just wear a mask, spread out, and crack open a window, and everything's going to be fine. And the reality is that when you have such under-resourced schools, that's not a plan for safety. And so teachers demanded more. They demanded a real plan for safety. And I do think that in this instance, this is where the mayor's personality and her own issues, got the best of her. Because I think a different leader would have found a way to, recognizing that there's limited resources, I think they would have found a better way of dealing with the situation and getting to a compromise sooner.
All right, before I go to the elected school board question, you raised the issue of her own personality, and it's pretty clear and obvious to me that I could think of two people right now in the city of Chicago that Lori Lightfoot really dislikes, and to the point where it's almost like she counterpunches when you hear their names. One is Stacey Davis Gates, Vice President of Chicago Teachers Union. Lori Lightfoot does not like Stacey Davis Gates. She can deal with Jesse Sharkey, the president, but she doesn't like Stacey Davis Gates. And then on the other side of the spectrum is Alderman Raymond Lopez of the 15th Ward. She really doesn't like Raylo. And that's funny because both of them are regulars on my show, so I don't know what she's got to get. If I can get along with them, anybody can. How does she get along with you, Carlos? You started out, you're very much in a similar position as Stacey. You supported Tony Preckwinkle. You were outspoken in your support of Preckwinkle. You hit hard on the campaign. I've had you on the stage at the Hideout defending Bernie Sanders against Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden. So you're a pretty good debater. You don't hold back. How do you get along with Lori Lightfoot 2 years in?
You know what? You're right. I don't hold back. When I pick my candidate, I'm all in, right? And I'm loyal, and I'm out there, duking it out for them in the trenches. And I do believe that Tony Preckwinkle was the most competent and most progressive choice for the city of Chicago. Unfortunately, the vast majority of Chicagoans did not agree. But I'll debate anybody at any point in time and say, yes, I really do believe that Tony Preckwinkle was the better candidate there. But that said, once Mayor Lightfoot was elected, I made it very clear. She's our mayor now, and I need to work with her, and we all need to work with her for the best interest, the collective interest of our city. And I made that very clear. I was quoted in both the Chicago Tribune and the Chicago Sun-Times in their coverage of her inauguration, her swearing in, praising her speech, praising the positions that she took forward. She initially issued an executive order that sought to rein in some of the aldermanic prerogative that she had railed against on the campaign trail. And a lot of aldermen criticized that publicly. I was one of the few aldermen to say, hey, this is a good step towards good government. I was looking through my weekly newsletter that I sent out. And in those first several months, I was making a lot of overtures saying, let's work together. I reached out to her. She didn't give me a meeting for quite some time. And when I finally did sit down with her, I apologize for, some of the more personal things that had been said on the campaign trail, but reiterated my desire to work with her for the betterment of our community. And it was just very clear that she was not going to let go what had been said on the campaign trail. And she made it very clear that she was going to seek to ice me out, that she was going to seek to work with some of my progressive colleagues, but wouldn't deal with me directly. Ultimately, I think that it was the wrong tactic that she pursued, right? Which was, I think she felt like I'm the emperor now, right? I defeated Tony Preckwinkle. I defeated the quote unquote machine, which is like, I want to write an op-ed about this. People need to understand that the new machine in the city of Chicago is Ken Griffin and real estate interests and all the money people who run our political system in this city. The Cook County Democratic Party, they can't even get their committeemen to back Kim Foxx. They couldn't even get judges that they went out against. There is no Cook County Democratic Party machine. It doesn't exist anymore in the way that it existed decades ago. The real power, the real corruption that's happening in the city are the corporate bosses and the corporate titans. And listen, let me tell you, who had their hand in their pocket was Lori Lightfoot. If you look at the amount of money that went from real estate to Lori versus real estate to Tony, it was like 8-1. It was ridiculous. So anyway, people need to understand that that's the new machine. But all that, why was I railing about that? Anyway, what?
By the way, that was a great riff.
Yeah.
I cannot allow it to go. I've been meaning to write this for a while. I'm with you 100%. I would go a step further. I would say that the Chicago Democratic political machine has not existed in years. And you have to go back to the days of Richard J. Daley. It's been slowly dying bit by bit. Richie M. Daley became his own political machine.
That's right.
It was not, so he didn't dole it out to. That's in fact. I remember Richard Mell complaining about that. Back at near the end of his days as alderman, that it was not like it was in the old days where you could get city jobs. So without the distribution of jobs to committeemen, there is no political machine. And yet, Carlos, they keep the vestige, this notion of the machine around, so it gets thrown around. So for instance, Harry Osterman in the 48th Ward, that's the political machine. How is Harry Osterman any more a political machine? I'm not defending Harry or any. I'm saying, how is he any more a political machine than Heather Staines? Please explain to me
why. Who was calling Harry? Was Heather Staines calling Harry Osterman the machine?
No, but in people are sending out Facebook messages and articles in the paper about how will the machine select Kelly Cassidy or will the machine? In other words,
it's just like a boogeyman now. It's like, there's this concept that's kind of out there, and now it's just cheap political analysis, and you just throw that around. You're the machine. That's the machine. They're supporting the machine. And it's just like, if we're as progressives, as leftists, if we're serious about building power, then we need to have a truthful political analysis that really understands how power works in this city. And it's actually not that difficult. Just follow the money, right? And you can see what are the networks of donors who are working together, talking behind the scenes, right? They're the ones having backroom meetings and deals. I met with this one big time, political donor who also helps, bundle a lot of money for a lot of different candidates. And I remember he said that he had met with Lori Lightfoot shortly after her election, and he said, "Oh, she's great. She's better than Ron." And so that means that, in these backroom meetings that they're having, right, she's clearly posturing to them that she's the woman, she's the candidate that's going to look out for their interests, right? She's the one that's going to make sure that they continue to consolidate power and continue to influence policies in the ways that they'd like to see in City Hall. And the thing is that this machine is so powerful that despite all of her best efforts to really placate them, the rush to reopen restaurants when all the evidence shows that it's not safe, right? I would even argue that the rush and the push to reopen schools. I met with her as a group of Latino aldermen did earlier on in October. At that point in time, she was pushing to resume in-person instruction because the schools have always been open. It's just been virtual versus, in person. But she was pushing for in-person instruction at that point in time. And I asked her, I said, what's the reason behind this? And she said, number one, I'm hearing from business leaders who are saying that they want their workers to be able to go back into the workplace and to be unencumbered by having to worry about their kids' virtual learning. Number two, I'm hearing from downtown businesses that are saying that they have no more customers. Oh, and number three, I'm worried about the kids and their learning loss. Well, you just told me there, number one, and number two, what was behind this push, which is there was some deep, this is my assumption now, this is, what I'm jumping to, is that there were probably some big time business leaders, perhaps donors of hers, that were saying you've got to resume in-person instruction because we're tired of our middle class, professional workers having to sit there all day helping their kid or looking after their kid. And at the same time, businesses downtown said we want our customers back in, right? Resume in-person instruction so that we can force them back into the workplace, and we can tell them you have an option now, right? You don't have to keep working from home. You have an option now. The schools have resumed in-person learning, and also we want you to go buy that, $5 coffee or $6 coffee down the street so we can keep that business open. And look, those are legitimate concerns, right? But should that override the concerns of worker safety and child safety and what's actually best for the safety and health of our children? No, it should not, right? But that is the neoliberal ideology, which consistently says put profit before people.
Yeah, well, and also there's the animosity, the personal animosity between Lori Lightfoot and the teachers union, because Carlos, just think about this. She should have, she sat down with the Latino alderman, but she didn't sit down with Jesse Sharkey. You know what I'm saying? And they bragged. I make fun of her her and Janice Jackson for bragging all the time about the 70 or 80 meetings that they forced Jesse Sharkey and Stacey Davis Gates to sit through with their various lawyers and HR people as they ground them down in negotiations, but never a personal meeting. Do you follow me? And I think that's also part of the narrative for neoliberal mayors, to use your term. Mayor Ramos the same way. He never met with Karen Lewis. In fact, he had the meeting with Karen Lewis, and it was he told her almost exactly what Lori Lightfoot told you. He said, we need a longer school day because businesses are telling me they don't want those kids walking around downtown at 1:30 or 2 o'clock. They don't want those hoodlums like a young Carlos Ramirez-Rosa from Whitney Young walking east on Madison into the Loop. We want them in the classroom longer. And she said to him, oh, what you're talking about is daycare. You don't want education, you want daycare. And that's when he told her to fuck you, Lewis. And so it seems as though some things haven't changed. And one thing that hasn't changed is that if you're the mayor of the city of Chicago, you don't treat the teachers union like they're a peer. You treat them like a subordinate. So you don't invite them into the office and have a conversation with them. You have your lawyers negotiate with them at the table if they're not willing to follow your command. You agree with that assessment of things?
Yeah. Well, isn't that the boss everywhere? Isn't that the story of and any worker, particularly low wage workers at Amazon, warehouses, they'll tell you the way that they're treated, right, by the boss, middle management on up, right, and so I think it's unfortunate, and I think again going back to one of the original points I was making, because it's something like 3 or 5% of the private sector is unionized now, right? It's like 10% of the total American workforce is unionized, but the bulk of that is in the public sector, right? And so that's why it's been so important for, the big time business leaders in corporate America to bust public sector unions like teacher unions, because it's one of the final sources of good middle class jobs and working class power in our society. But, we would have, if more of the private sector had been unionized, we would have seen more fights about workplace safety at the onset of this pandemic. And we saw a little bit, but it wasn't organized enough. It wasn't strong enough. There were people in Amazon warehouses when, the economy shut down and everybody was staying home, right? A huge chunk of the population was staying home, right? For a lot of people, that was never an option, right? And we've seen the numbers, how that's played out. Black and brown people have died disproportionately in this pandemic. A big part of it has to do with the fact that they're working those frontline jobs where they never had the luxury or privilege of sheltering in place. But when the pandemic initially happened and people that were still going in were Amazon warehouse workers, they tried to organize in their workplace and some of them got fired. There was a ton of intimidation. If they had had a union like the way CTU had a union, a lot of these conversations about what it means to work in a place during a pandemic would have been dealt with earlier on in the pandemic. And that's kind of the sad, frustrating part, is that now as CTU is having this fight to say, we just want basic safety in the workplace, they're getting responses from people that are saying, well, what about all these other workers that have been working this whole time? And it's like, yeah, those workers should have had basic safety too. And it's such a freaking shame that they didn't have a union that brought them together to win those concessions from the employer. So yeah, I mean, I think that's the mentality that the mayor of Chicago has, particularly when they're backed by capital and by the moneyed interests of the city, is you're the workers, I'm the boss, shut up, I'm going to bust your union, and I'm going to get money from Ken Griffin at the same time, because he's going to be super happy that I'm putting you in your place.
All right. Speaking of unions, get your comment on this. In the New York Times interview, she's done this before. Mayor Lori Lightfoot likened the Chicago Teachers Union to the Fraternal Order of Police. And she said, I get along with every union in the city of Chicago except for the one on the extreme right and the one on the extreme left. What can you do? You got the commies and then you got the Trumpites. What's a good liberal mayor to do? You know what I'm saying? And all over, I know on the north side of Chicago, a lot of, oh yeah, makes sense to me. A lot of north siders are saying that. What's your reaction? Carlos, you're not a typical
it's false equivocation. I mean, a lot of so-called moderates, they love to point to horseshoe theory. So this is just, the mayor's version of horseshoe theory, this notion that, people on the extreme right who want to kill minorities and gay people and take us back to feudalism, they're exactly the same as people that are fighting for a nurse in every school. Right, they're the exact same as people who just want health care as a human right and want dignified housing and want fair working conditions. Yeah, it's exactly the same. It's a ridiculous comparison. I don't think that anyone that has actually studied, the demands and the function of a police union versus the demands and the function of a teachers union could take that seriously. I don't know if there's much else to be said.
All right. By the way, do you think people in your ward buy into it? Do you think, like, when the mayor talks that way, does it win over voters in the 35th ward?
No, I don't think so. I think teachers are so sewed into the fabric of our neighborhoods. It's very different. In Chicago, we sort of know what are the cop neighborhoods, right? What are on the far northwest side and the far southwest side, right? Mount Greenwood, Jefferson Park. These are neighborhoods with high concentrations of police officers. I don't think you have a similar dynamic with teachers, right? Teachers are spread out all across the city of Chicago. I've taken portions of 5 neighborhoods. I have teachers who are active leaders in their neighborhoods in every single one of those communities, right? In Irving Park, Albany Park, Addison, they're out there getting organized and talking to their neighbors. And I think that's one of the extraordinary sources of strength for the CTU that a lot of mayors have misunderstood, right? They think that they can go on TV and use their bully pulpit. Mayor Manuel was able to count on funding from the Walton family to put out ads bashing the Chicago Teachers Union during the strike. They think that that will win them the day. They don't understand that, all politics is local. People love their neighbor. People love their teacher. Teachers are also in conversation with CPS families every single day, right? They're literally beamed into your home nowadays. I think a lot of mayors, I think, have misunderstood that dynamic, which is that, for a lot of people, their interactions with cops are very negative. And oftentimes there's not a cop living on their block because, as I noted, cops are very segregated in terms of where they live in the city. But for Chicagoans, teachers are our neighbors. They're our child's educator. Oftentimes they're co-parenting in many ways. So I think that there's a lot of love for teachers and there's a lot of relationships there, which really help them win public opinion time and time again.
By the way, we haven't talked since the budget. I think you were on the show right before the budget, which was in, I forget when, I've lost track of time with the pandemic. But when I was listening to you describe what you call the police wards and the wards where teachers are living, I had a vision of the way the no votes went in the city council. And a lot of the aldermen in those police wards voted against the budget, as did my beloved lefty aldermen, who are the Democratic Socialist aldermen. I just call you guys lefties, but whatever. Democratic Socialists. A very unique coalition. I have coalition in air quotes. Talk a little bit about that, Carlos. The fact that the aldermen from the police wards joined forces with my beloved lefties and voted no on that budget. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I think one, we have to understand that the biggest and most consistent coalition in the Chicago City Council continues to be the committee chairs, which are appointed by the mayor. And Mayor Lightfoot now on 2 instances has expanded the number of committees on the city council. Some would argue that she's done that in order to be able to expand the number of people that she can reward, right, with a committee in order to purchase their vote. And so even if you look at, the often pointed to analysis by Professor Dick Simpson, who he talks about, is the city council rubber stamp, is not a rubber stamp, consistently the people who are voting 100% with the mayor's agenda are committee chairs, right? And so that's where the bulk of the mayor's votes come from. That's where the bulk of the mayor's votes for her toughest fights have come from, whether it be the budget, whether it be her emergency power grab ordinance. So then you have aldermen who, have their different ideologies, right? And for different reasons are trying to either push the mayor to take a different stance or feel that they need to be responsive to their community and take a certain stance. I'm trying to remember why. Oh, it was a property tax increase. Right. So there were a lot of people, and primarily, again, you look at the neighborhoods where they were voting no, where they just felt like they could not stick their voters with another property tax increase. Right. Mayor Manuel had whopped them big time. Right. I mean, it was the biggest property tax increase in the history of the city of Chicago. And the promise then had been, this is going to be the last time, right, that you're going to have to go through this. And of course, the difference here is that, the progressives want to avoid a regressive budget by enacting progressive taxation and asking the rich to pay their fair share. And the conservatives want to avoid increasing regressive revenue and increasing property taxes, which hit, working class homeowners, by cutting government. So they're identifying the same issue, right, which is that we cannot continue to nickel and dime working people in our districts, but the solution that they're identifying is separate, right? So me and the progressives put forward an Amazon tax where we said, hey, who has money in this pandemic? Amazon, let's tax them, right? Let's ask them to help contribute towards the wonderful city that they're making so much money off of. And then at the same time, Of course, some of those conservatives wanted to see cuts. And at the end of the day, what that means is that our mayor, as she looks towards, the 20 plus aldermen that she has in her pocket because they're committee chairs, she then gets to make a choice. Am I going to get to a majority by aligning myself with the progressives, or am I going to get to that majority by aligning myself with the more conservative forces on the city council? Generally, my sense has been, based upon, having a front row seat to these fights, she's consistently chosen the more conservative forces on the city council. And you also have to understand another dynamic here is that there's a lot of people at City Hall that say Mayor Lightfoot always had the votes no matter what to pass that budget. There were some committee chairs who got to vote no on this budget as a treat, as a reward for being so loyal and so in line with her that she said, you know what, I release you, vote no, I absolve you so that you can, not have to take that vote in your district, because unfortunately she was able to pick up some, progressive votes. I don't want to relitigate that, but it's just a dynamic.
Yeah, Andre Vasquez and Maria Hadden. All right, we talked a lot. Trust me when I tell you, the budget was discussed a lot on this show. Unfortunately, you haven't been on the show since right before the budget. All right. By the way, I just want to defend Lori Lightfoot. You said that she buys votes by appointing chairs, and I want to point out to you that she has said many, many times that she never, ever, ever buys votes. So stop saying that, Carlos.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes,
okay.
right.
She said that. I read it sometimes.
Mayor Lori Lightfoot, just
She never buys votes. That's the difference between her and Ron. All right, let's move on from the city of Chicago and let's talk some national politics. Folks know sometimes Carlos comes on the show and that's all we talk are national politics. Diehard Bernie supporter, as I was. 0 for 2 on the Bernie campaigns, Carlos. Your thoughts about Joe Biden's first, what's it been, about a month or so as president of the United States? As a Bernie supporter, your thoughts?
I think that the initial announcements that were made in terms of the policies that, Joe Biden would be pursuing were exciting. Some of the initial executive orders that were signed. One, we need to recognize that, the things that have been accomplished in the first 100 days, so much of it is rooted in long time fights. So, for example, Joe Biden signed a moratorium on deportations. That has been a fight 7-8 years in the making. The Not One More Deportation movement, started in 2011, 2012 with undocumented activists getting arrested, putting themselves on the line. So there's a long trajectory to these fights. And I think it's extremely important that as leftists, we continue to understand that and we continue to uplift that, because that instructs us what do we have to continue to do to win more, right? So we shouldn't just believe that just the act of electing Joe Biden led to all of these wonderful changes happening overnight. No, these were long, hard-fought campaigns. Now, that said, I feel like they've hit a little bit of a roadblock. I feel like Democrats, as per usual, it's a story that's getting really old, are being way too conciliatory to the Republicans. The Republicans have totally shown themselves to be a party that is totally off their rocker, that would lead us to fascism in a second, if only given the opportunity, and if some of us would get out of the way. And I think that you really can't deal with the Republican Party with kid gloves. You have to be as ruthlessly politically effective as they are in pursuing their agenda. And so, why have we not yet gotten the $2,000 checks to people? Joe Biden said that if we elect, a Democratic Senate, those checks would be out the door. It's how many days, how many weeks now? People are starting to ask, where is that support and that relief check that I desperately need? Now, it does seem like we're getting close to passing that soon, right? The House sent the bill to the Senate. Bernie Sanders, our wonderful budget chairman, which, just gives us so much hope and really excites us about what is possible and feasible. He has said that he's going to work with the congressional progressives to make sure that that good progressive stimulus bill passes. It's going to be huge, right? If we get those $2,000 checks, if we raise the minimum wage to $15 per hour, plus get rid of the tip penalty, I don't think a lot of people recognize that, that is something that we may achieve. Right now, if you are a person that has disabilities or if you're a tipped worker, you make a sub-minimum wage, which so many people live in poverty because of the sub-minimum wage. We're talking about getting rid of that. That's huge. This is the legacy of slavery that we are now abolishing through getting rid of that sub-minimum wage. So I'm really excited. I hope that we can pass this, stimulus relief bill soon. But we've got to do a lot more, and we've got to be a lot more aggressive. Otherwise, we're in trouble in 2 years when the midterm elections come around.
All right. You said something that really reverberates with me. You were talking about you have to be tough with Republicans. I just wrote a column that got me in trouble with my good government friends. I'm with you. I think the Republicans in this impeachment vote exhibited just how bizarre they are. I use the word bizarre, and you can't trust them. You can't deal with them. They're a cult of Donald Trump. And so I, just on the local level, have recommended that the Democrats in the state of Illinois use their power in the legislative process and the redistricting process to essentially map Republicans out of existence congressionally, to do to Republicans in the state of Illinois what Republicans have tried to do to Democrats in Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Texas, North Carolina, etc. And I've been under siege from my good government friends who tell me that I'm cynical and jaded and I'm promoting bad government and I should sign on to the Fair Map initiative where Republicans and Democrats join hands in the state of Illinois and draw a map that benefits Republicans every bit as much as benefits Democrats.
Who are these
disagree with them.
liberals that you're talking to? They seem very comfortable and unafflicted. Because let me tell you, I mean, if you're a trans person, if you're a black person, if you're a low-wage worker who has suffered as a result of these, right-wing Republican policies for all these years, you need every Democratic state possible to do everything that they can to send as many Democrats as possible to Congress. And we have to understand that the way that our, federal government is structured is already inherently undemocratic. Why is it that there's 30, 40 million people in the state of California and they get 2 senators? And then you got 600,000 people in the state of Wyoming and they have 2 senators? Republicans, even just the way that our union is structured, already have more opportunities to be represented. So if we really want to enfranchise the vast majority of people, if we really want to enfranchise a working class coalition of Black, white, Asian, and Latino people, then the Democratic states of California, Illinois, New York have to do whatever they humanly possibly can to make sure that we send as many Democrats as possible to Congress. Otherwise, we're totally fucked as a country, right? Let's also, I didn't even get into climate change, right? So, no, I totally reject that argument. I just think it's people that are it's not being realistic. They're not living in the real world. We have a responsibility to fight for justice and make sure that we have a representative democracy. And in fact, trying to send as many Democrats as possible from the state of Illinois or from the state of California to D.C. is actually helping to balance out that already undemocratic nature that we have built into the structure of our federal government.
Yeah, I'm with you. Obviously you don't spend a lot of time talking to Dems because my world's swarming with Dems. I see them all the time, and I listen to Dems, Carlos. It's part of my, like I said, remember I told you I wasn't going to hold it against Michael Simmons that he worked for Rahm Emanuel. It's part of my new resolution to be really open-minded as we head off. By the way, I want to say that I don't know if you would follow what's going on in Maryland. But they overrode the governor's veto, as Republican Governor Hogan in Maryland overrode his veto, and they're going to tax on the Facebook, et cetera, and so forth, but they're advertising. So there are states, this goes back to what you said earlier, there are states and some entities that are looking, even North Dakota is proposing a tax right now that would on apps for Apple. So in other words, there are some states and some municipalities that are looking at these more progressive forms of taxation. Not in the city of Chicago, not really in the state of Illinois, but there are others. All right, we'll close with this. What do you make of, you talked a little bit about the Republican Party, and what do you make of what they're doing to the Adam Kinzingers and Lynn Cheney's in the Republican Party who dared to vote against Trump, censoring them, threatening to primary them? When you see this dynamic of where politics at this moment in time is heading, where do you think it's going on the Republican side of things?
The Republican Party has just really been in the throes of just conspiracy theories for quite some time now. Donald Trump became popular because he was one of the biggest birthers, right, in the right-wing media scape. Right, he was there talking about how Barack Obama was, not eligible to be, president. A bunch of, right-wing wacko conspiracy theories, and so now we look at Marjorie Taylor Greene and we're like, oh my God, that's extreme. But it's like, how many moderate mainstream Republicans talk about how Joe Biden is a Marxist agent of the Chinese Communist Party. That is such a crazy, bizarre, nonsensical conspiracy theory. And that's kind of accepted as like a mainstream talking point in Fox News. So are you really that surprised when you end up with the Marjorie Taylor Greens of the world, when you end up with the QAnon-believing congresswoman who believes all even types of more bizarre conspiracy theories? It's just really shocking to see that well off small business owners, suburban white people who believe this stuff. And it baffles me. I really don't have a sense of really understanding or comprehending how people become this way. I mean, a lot of it obviously does have to do with like the echo chamber on Fox News, where they're just peddling these conspiracy theories all day, every day. But the few Republicans that I've spoken with, some of them actually believe that Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, the champions of American capitalism, both at home and abroad, that they are somehow agents of the Chinese Communist Party. If we can't even have basic agreements on what's actually really happening in the world, and who actually holds power, I don't even know how we can begin to find a way towards having a Republican Party that makes any type of sense.
Yeah, I think it has to fade away onto a separate party. And anybody who's, well, I can't think of any Republican, actually, this is going to be quite a confession, Carlos, that like I see eye to eye to. Even I respect Adam Kinzinger for taking the strong stand, and I realize he's paying a price for it. I don't know if you saw the latest, like his family has denounced him. They say he's an agent of the devil or whatever. So I respect for him for standing up, but we don't see eye to eye on anything, on any issue. You know what I'm saying?
And these people have guns then. What are we going to do? What are we going to do?
Yeah. Oh, God. It's a frightening thought. All right, Carlos, I'm going to let you go. Your sound is breaking up anyway. I don't know why that is. But I should do a better job of reaching out to you. It's been too long since you've been on the show, and we'll get you back on real soon. All right.
All right. Bye, Ben. Bye, Dennis.
All right. That's the great Carlos Ramirez-Rosa from the 35th Ward. And I don't know what happened to you at the end, but just at the very tail end, the sound was breaking down a little bit. But he was in a roll.
Watch out, everybody. Snow coming at you.
Oh, wait, did Carlos leave?
Yeah, I think it was that snowblower that was messing up his sound. That's what was going on.
Well, let me shut the snowblower off. I missed Carlos, huh?
Yeah.
Well, what the hell? I'll do it. Hey, go Dolphins.
All right, almost done. Watch out.
A lot of snow out here today, Ben.
By the way, did you hear that little, how he, that brilliant debater? Ben, you voted for Lori Lightfoot. Oh, really? Oh, you had to go there. I did. Yeah, I did. Yeah, I did, Jay Marie. I voted for.
Yeah, if you know that, it's an easy thing to just throw right back at you. And
yeah, Mr. You know everything. Who did you vote for in the last mayoral election? I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you, Ben. What'd you say?
All right, let's do the back half, and let's talk some statewide news. No public events scheduled for our Illinois governor, J.B. Pritzker.
Springtime. Love it.
You're serious. Yeah, I love springtime, too.
Me too.
Yeah. But, hey, I know someone who has a big budget address coming up on Wednesday. It's true. Tomorrow, our Democratic governor will deliver his budget address. And you know, what would a Democratic budget plan in Illinois be without a bunch of Republicans freaking out about it? Hey, Illinois House GOP leader Jim Durkin, are there bogeys when it comes to state government budget?
There are no bogeys when it comes to a state budget.
Oh,
the House Republican caucus will continue to fight for taxpayers, demand a balanced budget, and hold the Democrat majority and Governor Pritzker accountable with the taxpayer money of Illinois.
Anything you'd like to add, Tom Dimmer? Tom.
So it's a time for the General Assembly to re-engage, and House Republicans are certainly willing to come to the table to ask the tough questions of directors, to work through the budget process, and come up with a balanced budget that can put Illinois on a more stable footing in the upcoming fiscal year.
All right, more from these knuckleheads in moments. Now, remember, everyone, right after the governor's fair tax amendment failed back in November, a then salty Governor Pritzker warned in dramatic fashion, there will be cuts, and they will be painful. Very, very upset he was after that fair tax amendment failed. Now, last week in a preview of his Wednesday budget speech, the governor, well, he did repeat those claims.
We're going to have to make some painful cuts in state government in order to balance the budget.
Pritzker also projected a $3 billion deficit, down from $5.5 billion. Hey, we're making progress. His plan includes $700 million in spending cuts and increasing revenue through closing $900 million in unspecified corporate tax loopholes. The governor also promised no tax increases, though that's not how Republicans see it. All right, back to the knuckleheads. Both GOP leader Durkin and Representative Demmer voiced their concerns further heading into Wednesday. Shout out to ABC 7 Chicago and Craig Wall for the story and audio. Please don't sue us. Jimmy D, let's hear it.
What the Democrats call is loopholes. We look at those as tax increases, but we also believe that that is a disincentive for businesses to remain in Illinois, to grow, and to keep employees employed, and to bring in new people.
Demmer,
where
go.
Department heads, agency directors come before the legislature, answer questions, provide information about their budgets.
You know, these guys, I don't agree with anything they say, but they do sound a little more, listen to them, they're a little more rational than Marjorie Taylor Greene. I will say that. You know, when I look at where the Republican is at, party is now, of course, none of them will take a stand against Marjorie Taylor Greene and Donnie Trump and Rudy Giuliani. You know, none of them are speaking up on behalf of Adam Kinzinger, but just listening to them, they're like still keeping that pretense that they're rational, logical, responsible politicians, as opposed to a bunch of wingnuts who think that Donald Trump actually won an election that he lost. Or maybe they believe that the forest fires of California were caused by solar lasers, coming out of the sky. Anyway, in the Sun-Times today, they went a little further with Durkin's quotes, and he cited Article 8, Section 2B in the Illinois Constitution that required a balanced budget. I go, oh, they're really getting down to the detail. The all-important Article 8. What a joke. Republicans in Illinois talking about a balanced budget. This would be Republicans who supported Bruce Rauner all 4 years when he didn't have any budget. Those Republicans. Now they're like, oh, well, that was then. Now, Ben, stop looking back. Look now. Look, here's the deal, ladies and gentlemen. I said this last week. I'll probably say it many times to come. J.B. Pritzker's budget was, quote unquote, balanced. Got air quotes on that, based on the fair taxes, Dennis said, based on money coming in from Washington. And so far, no money from Washington. And thanks to Phyllis and Kenny G, we don't have a fair tax. So we're going to Plan B in budget balancing, which is cuts. And Governor Pritzker has obviously figured out that heading into an election year, it's better to do it with cuts than with a tax hike. Because the next thing you know, you have Phyllis all over the radio and TV going, I warned you. That's my Phyllis imitation. I know, terrible imitation. Springfield politicians say they're not going to raise your taxes, but they will raise your taxes. So anyway, that's where we're standing right now. The election is what? Like, good God, time flies, man. We're having fun in a pandemic.
Said no one.
Nominating petitions go out at the end of this year in September, October for the primary, which is in 2022. The election's right around the corner. Already Republicans are announcing that they're going to be running against Pritzker. As Dennis has pointed out, he's exceedingly unpopular downstate. They blame him for absolutely everything that's gone wrong in the state of Illinois. They don't like him. And so he will need to win by just consolidating the vote he has in Chicago, DuPage, Cook County, using all his money to air commercials. It's going to be a tough fight. I've realized that. So looks like the last thing he's going to do is aggravate all those folks who hate him by raising taxes. And so that's where we're standing. He's going to declare the budget balanced, even though who knows if it's balanced. I mean, it's all a game they play anyway. They proclaim it's balanced. And then 6 months later, they go, oh, guess what? Our projections didn't work out the way that we thought they would, and it's not balanced. So it's the games pals play. Everybody's reading from their script in this game, and the Republican Party has dedicated itself to the notion that you're going to run government without taxes, and that's all there is to it. They're hoping that they could just feed off the anti-tax fervor and just feed off the resentment that people have outside of Chicago and Cook County toward Pritzker for closing down the state, mandating businesses close, very unpopular, so bizarre. It's so contradictory. On one hand, you have Lori Lightfoot here in the city saying, it's okay to open the schools, but, we still got to keep these businesses closed. Nobody seems to really worry about how she handles things. But of course, J.B. Pritzker is the centerpiece of opposition to all things closing down, in all efforts to close down businesses. So, D, it's going to be really tough for him. And that's why you're going to see him, that's my prediction, make a speech in which somehow or other he's going to magically balance the budget without raising taxes, because I don't think he wants to raise taxes going into an election year. And particularly one where he's already unpopular because of the pandemic and his mandates to close businesses. So there you go, D. The games politicians play.
All right, Governor Pritzker, anything you'd like to add?
The enemy is you.
Oh, I think he's talking about you, Ben.
Well, yeah, I think he is.
Oh, yeah.
He's certainly not talking about Steve Miller and the Eagles.
No, not at all.
No.
Face coverings.
Oh, you're driving me crazy today, Governor. And there
Let's begin with phase one.
And there you are, everybody. Today's Ben Joravsky Show. Remember, you can download previous Ben Joravsky shows, Benny J bonus interviews, like the weekend's Benny J bonus interviews. Have you heard them yet? Go check them out. ChicagoReader.com and wherever else you download your favorite podcast. You can always reach the Ben Joravsky Show on social media at Benny J Show, BENNY, the letter J Show on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can send us an email, BennyJShow@gmail.com. And you can call the Ben Joravsky Show. It's true. 708-658-4788. That number again is 708-658-4788. We got a lot of promotions going on right now. You can become a Ben head. Oh my God. Are you a Ben head? I don't know. But you can go to chicagoreader.com/Joravsky to learn more about this. It's a way to help support the Ben Joravsky Show and the Chicago Reader. Also, Ben's got a book coming out. Boy, we are busy these days, Ben. His greatest hits, the Chicago Reader. Ben Joravsky put a book out, greatest hits. You'll learn more about it once again, chicagoreader.com/Joravsky. I am done talking.
All right, I want to thank Carlos Ramirez-Rosa, outstanding job as he does, Alderman of the 35th Ward on the northwest side of Chicago. And of course, the man, the myth, the legend, the pride of Jordan, Illinois, without whom this show would be possible, is Carlos, Lori Lightfoot, and Stacey Davis Gates will tell you back home in Alton, they call him Dr. Ski. We're just going to do that one more last time. Give yourself a raise, take it out of petty cash. See you tomorrow, everybody.
We're going to have to make some painful cuts. Face coverings.
What the Democrats call is loopholes. We look at those as tax increases.